Good evening, everybody. Welcome to our trustee meeting. Good evening, I'm Mayor Lawrence Royale, and I'm calling the Tuesday, March 17th, 2026 meeting to order. The time is approximately 6 o'clock. This meeting is streamed on the village website. The public can also participate via Zoom. Instructions and overall public participation guidance is listed on the website and on page 4 of the meeting packet. I will now turn it over to the clerk to give additional instructions. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. The Village of Los Ranchos is providing the opportunity for the public to participate in hybrid meetings. As with any application, digital service, or software, the opportunity for failure can occur. Therefore, the village is not responsible for the inability to connect to the meeting either by the Zoom meeting link or viewing via live stream. The meeting is being recorded and will be available online after the meeting on the village website.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Thank you. Trustee Baldwin.
Here.
Trustee Edward.
Here.
Trustee Kiefer.
Present.
Trustee Reinau.
Here. Thank you all. Would you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right on.
Happy St. Patrick's Day to all of you. Anyway, we'll move on to the meeting. General public comment. Only those participants who have signed up prior to the meeting can speak on topics that do not appear on the agenda under public comment and will be given up to 3 minutes. To be fair to others waiting to speak, a timekeeper will make an announcement when the allotted time is up. Therefore, it is important to keep your comments short and plan on making your point as soon as possible. No action can occur on these items. If you have questions, please feel free to contact the staff during business hours. Madam Clerk, please proceed by calling up the individuals that have signed up for general public comment.
Thank you. Before we begin general public comment, please note that comments on any active planning or zoning applications or applications still within their appeal period are not permitted. These items are or may become quasi-judicial and can only be discussed through the formal hearing process to ensure fairness and due process. The Director of Planning and Zoning may interrupt public comment to advise the speaker if their remarks fall within a quasi-judicial case. So with that being said, we're going to call up the first individual, Ms. Nancy Nangeroni, if you would. Please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record, and you have 3 minutes.
Hi, Nancy Nangeroni, 7315 Guadalupe Trail. Mr. Mayor and trustees, I had an idea, and I'm here to present that idea as a possibility, trusting you guys know much better than me about whether or not this is feasible. We've learned something important about roads. When roads are made wider, vehicle speeds and traffic volumes both increase. We see that lesson reflected in our own actions. We're narrowing 4th Street and adding speed bumps in several locations to slow traffic. We missed an opportunity on Guadalupe Trail between Chavez and Tyler, where the roadway was recently widened. I was told, I don't recall by who, that paving crews are paid by the amount of pavement installed. That incentive may have produced a roadway wider than the village intended. Most of us want to keep Los Ranchos, the beautiful semi-rural place we love. To that end, I ask the mayor and trustees to consider an ordinance prohibiting further widening of existing village roads without Board of Trustees approval. We could also work with the county to retain or acquire more compact emergency vehicles, so new roads would not have to be built to Albuquerque standards to accommodate very large vehicles. Fewer feet of road within newer developments could leave hundreds, if not thousands, of square feet as soil or hopefully vegetation. If we want to preserve the character and safety of Los Ranchos, preventing further road widening could be a helpful strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Our next individual is Mr. Bob Martinez.
Bob Martinez, 301 Enchanted Valley Road, Village of Los Ranchos. I have been honored and blessed to serve as a commissioner on the P&Z for the past 5 years. During this time, I was involved in the Palindrome project, which brought out the village residents, both in support and opposition, forming committees to let their voices be heard. Since the project's completion, I've seen the people of the village start to heal by creating committees to bring village together, such as Neighborhood Watch, yard sales, lectures, coffee with the trustees. This shows our village commitment to get involved. In this spirit, I come tonight to respectfully propose the formation of committees to review our village codes and consider updates that would help reduce variances and address reoccurring matters that come before the commissions. It is my understanding that the creation of such a committee would require the formal approval by this body. If approved, I would be honored to help lead the effort, working with P&Z directors, interested residents to ensure transparency, and you, the trustees, for final approval. Thank you for your time and consideration. I welcome any questions.
Thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. Next individual is Haley Ryzek.
Good evening. My name is Haley Ryzek, 6504 Meoki Court. First and foremost, I wanted to thank you guys for the opportunity to speak here tonight. And I'm here speaking on behalf of myself and my fiance, Grant Smith, who was unfortunately unable to be here. He got called into work. We were both born and raised in the Los Ranchos community. Both of our parents, our grandparents, and even my great-grandma has lived in Los Ranchos. And we are hoping to host our wedding at Hartnett Park. We love the space and feel like it reflects the natural beauty and the character of the village. We've reviewed the rental guidelines, and we understand that alcohol is currently not permitted unless the event is sponsored by the village and approved by the Board of Trustees. We wanted to respectfully ask for clarification on what that process could look like. Specifically, we are wondering if we were to hire fully licensed and insured bartenders, set strict serving times, obtain event insurance that names the village as additionally insured, and comply with any safety or security requirements, would the board consider allowing alcohol service under a village-sponsored event designation? Additionally, we would appreciate any guidance on what village sponsorship entails in this context, whether there are established fees associated with that sponsorship, and what steps we would need to take to formally apply or to be considered. We anticipate approximately 200 guests for our wedding, many of whom are visiting from out of town, and we are extremely excited to show them the great neighborhood that we grew up in. But we are really committed to creating a safe and respectful and well-managed event that aligns with the village's values. As I mentioned, many of our family and friends live in this area, so we understand how precious this place is. And our goal is to celebrate in a way that also honors and supports this community that's raised us. But thank you guys so much, and I'm open for questions as well.
Thank you, Ms. Reisig.
Trustee Kiefer?
Sorry, just one question for you. What date is your wedding?
We are open to any dates in the fall, so
So you're looking fall of 26.
yeah, fall of 26.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. There is an item on the agenda this evening that may help answer some of your questions. So,
Okay, wonderful. Thank you,
all right,
guys.
thank you.
Our next individual is Mr. Vincent Sanchez.
Vincent Sanchez, 6802 Rio Grande. Good evening. In the current Village Vision, an article was written called "What is a Variance and What Is It Not?" I'd like to thank its author here as well, as I believe it is accurate and clear and easy to understand. But it got me to thinking about the application of code and how a variance integrates with the broader hierarchy of village, county, and state. Each larger requires the smaller to represent a broader law, adding its own legal details without undermining the former. This article did inspire me to make a request to the P&Z Commission. However, since public comment was largely ignored and discourse discouraged, I wanted to also ask the board staff to make the same inquiry for its own clarification. My question is, can an incorporated municipality like the village make a ruling, ordinance, or regulation that is in direct conflict or violation to state statute? Specifically, the village did approve something that is in direct conflict with state statute. That approval and allowance is one of the things disrupting my family's access to irrigation water. Something talked about with reverence holistically, but I have not seen it defended in the village specifically. Even if the code says as much. I believe there's a misunderstanding at this intersection of village and state responsibilities. Whether that be mine or the village's, I would like this to be known. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next individual is Mr. David Montoya.
Thank you, Board. David Montoya, 8831 4th Street. I just wanted to take a short time to acknowledge the hard work that's been done by the village representatives that go to the legislature and lobby for monies for our village. Recently, I heard that we've received $4 million just in this last session. Prior to that, we did pretty good by getting monies for the Chavez Road. And these do not happen in a vacuum. We have really great representations and even better now at the legislature. And I just want to acknowledge the hard work that was done, and hopefully that we would herald this so that the public would know that, hey, people are working hard to bring money to this little village. And there's a lot of needs all over the state. It's a very big state, a lot of small communities, and we're really successful here. And we have great representatives, but we have great people that lobby and work with them. And I just want to acknowledge that and appreciate, and I hope the public does too. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gordine McKenzie.
Gordine McKenzie, 7315 Guadalupe Trail. I had just a couple items I wanted to address. And the first is I wanted to invite you all to our free speaker series to celebrate Route 66. And there are free talks on the fourth Saturday of every month. And let me pass them out. I also have extra ones. So the fourth Saturday of every month, January through November, from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. And there are about 12 different locations that the speakers, over 14 speakers, will rotate to. And our closest area is the Raymond Sanchez Community Center. And I did just want to acknowledge David Montoya, who just spoke before me, who is doing many of the talks directly on the history of Los Ranchos. And in his last talk, which I attended, the audience got up and applauded 3 times spontaneously. And I will do a few talks on Los Ranchos also, so we'll have a big percentage of people talking on Los Ranchos. I did have one other issue that is sort of played on my mind, and perhaps I've misunderstood, but I remember a previous meeting where it was said that in a quasi-judicial hearing, if it's not in the written record, then we cannot hold some of the people, if they're developers or otherwise, responsible that the recording itself doesn't stand as a record. So if I have that wrong, I hope someone will correct me, and I hope that isn't wrong. I hope the recordings in itself act as a legal document. But thank you all for all you're doing, and I hope to see you at some of the historical meetings.
Thank you very much. And I understand that that particular event that Mr. Montoya spoke, that at least half the room was his family.
We're happy to have a nice nap.
I think he handed out an allowance.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, that was
Thank you, Gordine. Our next individual is Mr. Colin Tebow.
Good evening, Mayor Rael, fellow
Good evening.
trustees. My name is Colin Tebow. I'm an adopted son of the village, and I'll tell you how. I grew up on 6670 Edgewood between 4th and 2nd on Osuna. And you guys were the first ones to offer recycling back in the day, and so our neighborhood petitioned to get annexed into the village. And so we are very thankful for the park at the end of the street. But I come here today as the vice chair of the Middle Rio Grande Conservancy District, and kind of in response to Trustee Edwards coming to our board meeting last Monday to kind of say, hey, what's up with you guys? Come on down. We'd like to talk about some things. And so kind of why I'm up here wearing this green jacket is also St. Patty's Day, yes, but Chair Kelly gave me this and said, you have a very important meeting to go to tomorrow. And so the reason is the green, a little bit of a cool way to think about it is the valley is green culturally. We have created this green belt. It was in response to damming and controlling and channeling the river. And so this really unique gem that has been referenced as the largest contiguous cottonwood forest in the world is something that is a byproduct of just making sure we can live here and develop here. And so why is that relevant? Well, the cultural green that we see is because we are stewards of practices that have allowed for places to stay green and for them to become even greener. And so when that is not as well as it could be understood, there's an element of education. And so I went to Alvarado Elementary, I went to Taft Middle School, and I graduated from Valley Vikings, and I'm a proud Valley Viking. So I've stayed in the Valley. I live down the street in Duranes, and I'm the proud mayordomo of the Pierce Lateral. And in Duranes, we saw water being kind of, we were on the chopping block. It was going, gone type of a thing. So we organized and we created an Asaki Association within the district, and it gave us a lot of structure to figure out ways to engage in the district and to organize our community, and more importantly, to figure out how our neighbors were struggling and to come up ways to help. Maybe not make it better, but to help. And that kind of got me into all the doings of the district, and next thing you know, I just got reelected, and now I'm in for 4 more years, and I'm very excited. So I come humbly before you to say the district is very eager to engage with the village, to better understand what the village's concepts are, and to maybe help push that together as an ally so that we don't lose this culturally rich place that we cherish as the Valley, and that we can help bring the new education up with the new generation on what is the future of the Valley. And so that's kind of a thing that I just wanted to get on the record and to speak about. But thank you so much for your time and for all your hard work, and Valley Vikings.
Thank you so much, Mayor and Board. That concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you very much. And thank you for coming in. We do a lot of work with the district and with the Miller Rio Grande Conservancy District, so we really do appreciate the partnerships, and thank you for your time, for sure. All right, with that being said, we have a presentation. The 2026 Farm Plan at the Larry P. Abraham Agri-Nature Center. Aaron Callahan and our director and Andrew Thorne can come up to the podium. They can proceed with the presentation.
All right, thank you so much, Honorable Mayor and Board of Trustees. It's a pleasure to be here for the first time before you this evening. My name is Aaron Callahan. I am the Agricultural Program Director for the Larry P. Abraham Agri-Nature Center. I've enjoyed getting to know some of you through our Ag Committee meetings and our volunteer events, and I look forward to getting to know all of you as I continue in this role. We are here to present our 2026 Farm Plan. As you all know, we are also out to RFP right now for a master plan for the facility. So our goal with the 2026 Farm Plan has been to capitalize on some of the existing and already established practices and layouts that have already been, that are already present at the Agri-Nature Center, and do those really well, and then add in a few new exciting projects that are gonna be a big impact but low staff effort to move forward. And so with that, I'd like to turn it over to our farm manager, Andy Thran, so that he can give the presentation. Thank you.
Very good, thank you.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Trustees, Mayor, thank you for seeing me tonight. I'm excited to talk about our farm plan. Yeah, we'll come up here. Darn out, how we looking? Sweet. Cool. Let's go back to the first slide. Okay, so it's all there. You guys got it? Can you read that? No, we're gonna walk through one spot at a time. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, we're gonna start out at the road. This is where we turn into the Agri-Nature Center from Rio Grande Boulevard. On the right-hand side is an existing orchard. And right now we have had a lot of work and help from volunteers from the community to prune and maintain those trees. We appreciate all of their help with that. One thing we'd like to add this year is to upgrade some of the mulch and irrigation that we have for those trees. So implementing some of the Oyas from the YCC that's going to be making Oyas for us this year is a fun experiment. And then also make sure we mulch those trees in and keep them happy through the winter. Go ahead and go to the next slide. On the other side of the entrance road are what used to be exclusively lavender beds. We're going to maintain some of those beds in lavender, but we'd also like to utilize that space for some of our programming. So we'll be planting those out with cut flowers, heritage grains, dye and fiber plants. And then we also have a collaboration going with the Dahlia Society for them to be able to grow some of their dahlias as a demonstration there. Potentially building on that in future years because they don't have a demonstration garden in the Southwest. So it's kind of an interesting opportunity for the Ag Center. Next slide, please. This is something that was put in place by the prior director, Willie Carlton. He planted a landrace chili program and a healer's garden. We're gonna keep working with that. We're starting chili in the greenhouse, and we're also planting medicinal herbs to support our workshop series on medicinal plants that we have planned for this summer. Next slide. D is an existing large alfalfa field. Right now we're gonna keep it in alfalfa, spike in some grasses to give it a little bit more biomass this year. But overall, we'll just leave that one as a perennial pasture for hay production this year. Next slide. E is something that is going to happen to D later. It was planted in a cover crop last year, and so now we're going to work with the work that's already been done and create an annual hay cropping production, get rid of the rest of the alfalfa, and then be able to generate a lot of hay in that way too. Next slide. F is one that I'm personally kind of excited about. This was an area that kind of was in hay production, kind of got abandoned last year. We would like to divide it into 3 different subsections. One, there's a tree line that divides kind of this block that I have outlined here. The tree line, I'd really like to do a demonstration mushroom garden, focusing mostly on what will grow on elm trees and other invasive woody species in the area. So kind of giving purpose to all of these things that we don't have a use for right now. To the south of that, covered up by this little shape, is the Schulte house. And a thought that we had this year that'll be really fun come fall is we're gonna plant a pumpkin patch around the Schulte house and then dress it up with sunflowers and some corn and just have like a really fun fall garden that will make it look really pretty around there. Yeah, thank you. And then the long strip to the north of both of those little areas that I mentioned, we're going to set aside as a trial for food crops that can be grown without a well. So just using acequia water, just using rainwater, what can we grow? What kind of food can we produce? So we're gonna kind of pull out all the stops and use all the dry land farming techniques that I'm aware of and try to create an acequia only row crop system. And this will be a challenge because this year we're not gonna get much acequia water. So it's gonna be interesting. Next slide, please. Okay, G1 and G2, when this farm plan was made, all these things were kind of like, we are going to do it. Some of these has already happened. The ASLA honey badgers have some beehives there, and they have already been taken off site. We graded a new pad, and they've been moved from G1 to G2, and they're happy in their new home. A little sunnier location, maybe a little bit better for bees is what they're hoping. Next, please. H is another project that was started last year. Credit to also the man behind the computer over there, Darnell, who planted this garden, and we're gonna take care of it. So this is a pollinator garden. We've already gone through and basically done all the work to get it going this year. And so we're just waiting to see what comes back from the winter. Next, please. I is the small vineyard and the raised beds to the west of the main building. This space is currently mostly maintained by the Master Gardeners. They're a great group that does a lot for the Ag Center. We want to support that by fixing up fencing. We're going to replace the trellis system for them because the trellis on those grapes has become pretty run down, and so it's time for an upgrade there. Next slide, please. Jay is one of our community partners, Big Jim Farms. Just coincidence that it landed on Jay, so didn't plan that one out. But they use that space for annual vegetable production, and then they also teach classes out of the facility. So we're going to continue to foster that relationship with them. Next. K is an area that had been used a lot for cover crops. Grain production has kind of fallen by the wayside. We're going to go through and completely renovate this field this year and then plant it out with a mix of cool season plants that we'll use for rotational grazing with our sheep. Next slide, please. L is in a similar boat right now where it has been kind of a little bit neglected. The sheep have overgrazed at this point. So we're actually going to cut down the size that the sheep are allowed to be on as a permanent space. And then we're going to increase our capacity to rotate them using electric fences so that we can actually graze the grass and the forage when it's healthy and robust, and then get off of it and let it recover in a truly regenerative way. And I'll show you a brief glimpse of what we're working on in the next slide, please. So this is a diagram of what is largely underway right now and will be completed mostly tomorrow, except for the future potential hay storage area. So we've created an and basically an 800 square foot, or 8,000 square foot, sorry, enclosure with a 6-foot woven wire fence, very secure from coyotes and predators, a place that you could have young animals, vulnerable animals, that they would be protected. We are going to build just a small little shelter for them, a place to get out of the elements, but also kind of a neat feature on the bottom left-hand corner. There's a small demonstration and viewing area. And so this is a place that school groups can go into the sheep pen, but not be exposed to actually like having to be in there with the sheep, and they can feed them and interact with them. But it's also a place that we can catch the sheep and work on them. So for our event on Saturday, that's where we're gonna do our shearing demonstration. So yeah, it's kind of a nice little like way to be able to work with the sheep. And then hopefully in the future, we're able to implement some form of hay storage in that area that's like more like a barn, because right now we're doing everything out of the warehouse. Don't know. This tiny little piece here, is actually a really neat garden that got put in place last year. It's a waffle garden, so if any of you are familiar with that style where Native Americans in the area used, like instead of raised beds, they used depressed beds to be able to capture water and conserve it. It's also been implemented with oyas at the bottom of those waffle depressions. So it's really a neat spot, and we're gonna continue to work with that and maintain it, and then we're gonna plant it in a Three Sisters garden this year. That's kind of what we've decided, so. Next. We move over to the north side of the main facility. On N is what used to be a hops field. It will also be maintained as partially hops. There's still some hops that's growing in there. We're gonna try to propagate it this summer and keep a couple beds in hops, but also using the rest of those beds to support programming at the Ag Nature Center. So farm to table dinners, food preservation classes, that kind of stuff. Next, please. O is a pretty neat little block of beds. It's only 3 of these 105-foot beds, but the Albuquerque Sign Language Academy has a really incredible farmer that is leading classes there, and it's pretty inspiring. They've been there, I've seen them there for 2 years now, and it's very cool to see, kids who would otherwise not have this opportunity to come out and really learn how to farm and interact, and so I think it's really special, and we're maintaining that relationship as well. Next. P is probably one of the most exciting for the community. It's the community garden. So it's been really fun to see. We expanded by 27 beds, so we're up to about 60 beds that we've offered to the community this year. And we also offered space in the greenhouse where people can come and bring their own starts so that they have like a safe spot to keep their plants safe while we wait for this weather to figure out what it's gonna do with itself. But yeah, so they'll also be able to use that greenhouse to do fall starts too. So it's a really nice place that you can we're gonna keep it cool enough in the summer that they can get fall starts going. So it'll be really nice for the community. Next, please. Q is the other vineyard on the property. It is maintained by MOU with Desert Forge right now. They are a veteran-owned nonprofit that's working on supporting the vineyards of the valley. Really neat organization. And we are supporting them through just upgrading the trellises, making sure that they have the resources that they need, and beautifying that vineyard, because it's really the vines are healthy, they're old, they're really nice, but we need to fix up the vineyard a little bit too. So we're ordering new railroad ties and trellis and doing the irrigation. Next slide, please. This is the last area that I'll talk about. This is leased by Scott Rasband right now. We're working with Scott to kind of work on his fertility program. It's been in hay for many, many years. The alfalfa is starting to wear out, so we're starting conversations of how can we get some manure out there? How can we upgrade the acequias to be able to irrigate it effectively? Yeah, so he's been he's obviously a large scale farmer in the area, and we want to continue to support him through his lease and make sure that the land is as best taken care of as we possibly can do. And that was my last slide.
Okay.
We will stand for questions.
Well, first, let me just start by saying, you all know Aaron and Andrea are what, 3 or 4 months into the job? And obviously, a nice activity happening this coming weekend. And I'll have Erin talk a little bit about it when we conclude our questions. But to me, the most important part about the effort now is really, we heard it a couple of weeks ago, or about a couple of months ago, I guess now, from an individual who came in and said, look, this is like our jewel of our community. We really got to clean it and get things, cleaned up. And to both Andrew and Erin's credit, they organized the community folks and people showed up, and I know that several of the trustees were there and really helped clean the place up. And it's starting to look really, really nice. And of course, we've got staff now that are doing a lot of work on the landscaping around the place. And just the idea of having a really cool enclosure for the sheep is really sort of another one of those sort of ideas of just making sure we get our house cleaned up, so to speak. And later on this evening, we'll talk a little bit about some legislative money and some investment in the facility that will really, I think, get us to the next level. But I do want to just compliment them and the staff for the work they've been doing. And quite frankly, the community as a whole have been really supportive. And it really is an effort that takes, as they say, a village. So I just wanted to say thank you to both of you and the staff for all the good work you're doing there. And with that, I'll open it up for the trustees if they have any questions. Trustee Gwynn.
I guess less of a question than a comment, which is I am so impressed that how much you have pulled together and focused in the few months that you've been on board. I mean, John and I, Trustee Edward, and I had a chance to get a preview at the Ag Committee, and it still just makes me smile. I think this is really great work, and I can't wait to see what you do with the RFP for the master plan and particularly the facilities. Now that sort of peeking ahead, there may be some resources to do some good things. Also, I wanted to offer up, I don't have the presentation materials yet from the Land and Water Summit, which just was held, but there were a couple of great presentations on dryland farming, particularly indigenous large scale, and I will be happy to send that to you so you can make contact with the people who gave it.
That would be great. Thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Edwards?
Thanks for all your sweat.
Welcome to it.
Yeah, thank you very much. Maybe you want to wrap it up a little bit and make a plug for your for this weekend's coming up event. Erin?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. And thank you very much for all the kind words. We're certainly not done putting our sweat into the property as we approach a potential 90-degree spring equinox festival this Saturday, March 21st. 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. You'll get to see the sheep enclosure completed. We'll have a sheep shearing demonstration. We have a lot of activities around the importance of seed saving, along with a seed exchange, vendors, food trucks. It should be a great time. We really hope to see everybody out there. You can follow us on Instagram now. We're at Los Ranchos Ag Center. And so we're posting more flyers than in the past, getting the word out there a little bit more about our events. And thank you very much for the opportunity.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you too. Let me also just take a few minutes here to introduce another individual that will be joining our team. As many of you know, Fred Radosevich decided that he wanted to spend a little more time with his family and well-deserved retirement. And so we have been looking for someone to step into those shoes and to really help with the community. And I'm so excited because in the audience this evening, and Greg, if you could just stand up and come up to the podium for a second. Greg Pettis has agreed to serve as our public safety director. And I am really excited and happy about this. As many of you who are long-term residents of the village, Greg was our fire chief at one point. And so I couldn't be happier to have someone who knows the village as well as he knows the village from his time here. But you also know that he's a very accomplished professional in his work at the county as the deputy county manager for public safety, and obviously has a great relationship with the sheriff's department, the fire department, and all public safety related functions with the county. So he comes to us with a tremendous amount of experience and knowledge of our community and quite frankly of Bernalillo County as a whole. And so we're working on a contract to get him on board, but I just wanted to bring him up this evening because as we get into the summer months, and we always know there's more and more activity in the community on summer months, everyone's out late, et cetera. It's a perfect time to bring in a well-experienced, seasoned individual. So Greg, if you might want to say a few words, it'd be great.
Mayor, trustees, as always, it's a privilege to be back in the village. I was the fire chief back in 2005 to 2009, but started volunteering in the village back in 1998. Unfortunately, I don't live in the village. I'm right on the outskirts, but I call the village home and have for a long time. I too am a Viking, and I saw one of them. He left, but was a Viking and did go through the school system here in the North Valley. So really, really, truly home. I look forward to the opportunity to serve as the conduit for the village amongst our other public safety partners with Bernalillo County, City of Albuquerque, Village of Corrales that isn't too far off from us as well. And more importantly, as that conduit for the community back to your leadership within the village. So I'm extremely excited to come on board to the team, and thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you, Greg, and I don't know if anybody has any questions for our future public safety director, but you'll not.
When does he start?
We're working on that, and we'll stay tuned. It'll be very soon. I will say this, however, interestingly enough, a little factoid on my friend here, Greg was one of the folks that was really instrumental in the Easter Bunny egg hunt that happens at Harnett Park every year. And so having him back full circle, I don't know if he's going to come as the rabbit, but certainly he'll come back helping us coordinate that down the road because he does have a lot of experience. But anyway, thank you for being here this evening and for agreeing to work with us.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. I also asked the sergeant from the BSO to come over this evening just to make sure that we know we've had some inaccurate reporting here as of late over a particular event that happened on the south side of the village limits, not in the village, in the city of Albuquerque, unfortunately. And we have had a lot of activity, and I was speaking to the sergeant about this, and I just want to let the trustees know. A lot of activity happening along Solar and that, if you will, that area that basically borders between the city, the county, and the village. And I've been asking the captain that's in charge of this area, and I spoke to the sergeant about getting a little bit more presence along that corridor. As we all know, the activities that happen around convenience stores in particular can sometimes be challenging for communities. I spoke to an individual at length this afternoon who lives in the Solar neighborhood, thinking that I was his mayor, but I am not his mayor. He's actually in the city of Albuquerque, but nonetheless, these jurisdictional issues are just artificial lines in many cases. We've got to work together and collectively help each other, as Greg Perez just said. So, Sergeant, thank you for being here this evening, and I don't know if you have any thoughts or any words you'd like to share. If not, we don't want to keep you from doing the other great important work you do in the community.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. If you guys have any concerns, feel free to forward those to us. Our captain is very proactive in making sure any issues that rise up, we get the information so that we can address those appropriately. So any questions you guys have for us or any issues that come up, please direct those directly to us.
Thank you, Sergeant. Appreciate it. All right, with that said, let's move on to item 6, approval of the minutes. The minutes of February 17th, 2026 regular meeting. Do we have a motion for approval?
Mayor, so moved, but is it okay, Danielle, if I correct a typo with you afterwards? It's just an administrative thing, but.
All right, we have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
It's been second. All right, there is a typo that Danielle will take care of. Any questions, any other corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, minutes are approved. We'll move on to item 7, public hearing, ordinance number 309, an ordinance adopting Municipal Economic Development Gross Receipts Tax, GRT. Is there a motion to approve this ordinance?
Motion to approve ordinance number 309.
It's been moved, and do we have a second?
Second.
It's been moved and second. Ms. Schultz, to explain the ordinance, please.
Mayor Real and trustee members, good evening. This is the gross receipts tax enabling ordinance required by DFAS to actually put into place the gross receipts tax that the voters of Los Ranchos approved last November. This is, I would distill it down to a procedural matter where the state requires the local body to establish the tax via ordinance. So your vote tonight would put the tax that the voters already said yes to in place. The village would then send that ordinance to DFAS at the state per their requirement, which would set the tax to go into effect at its scheduled time on July 1st.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing no questions?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Edward.
Excuse me. So it's about investment, and to the degree that these dollars are invested in our community, and we have a list of projects that are capable and able to receive these funds. By what mechanism are we going to use an empirical measuring stick to determine a degree of a return on investment such that we follow that and measure it, and if it doesn't, then that type of a use, does that get a black eye, or are we using an empirical measure? Are the people using it as it was relegated for?
Mayor Real, Trustee Edward, that's a great question. Those are details that will be figured out and also established by this body as a part of the next step in the process, which we're calling the LEDA plan. There will be required by state law a section in that plan that talks about how the village will choose projects to be awarded, how they will be measured, and any kind of punitive measures if that offerer does not follow through with what they have promised. This body will have full purview over that plan and the proposal that staff is working along the mayor with to bring forward in the coming months. So you will have a direct say in what that looks like here quite soon.
Okay. And I might add, just for the folks listening on, the tax was approved in November. However, the state statutes and the way state procedures, the tax doesn't go into effect until July. So it's my goal, trustees and members of the community, that we have a good conversation about this plan in the next coming months, so that as we start accumulating some of those tax proceeds, that we have a process in place that deals with the questions that Trustee Edwards just raised. With that being said, any other questions? Seeing no other questions, Madam Clerk, to call the roll.
Trustee Baldwin?
Yes.
Trustee Edward?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Reinell?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you very much. I'll move to ordinance, or to item B, ordinance number 310. An ordinance adopting pursuant to Chapter 2, Article 3 of the codified guidance pertaining to the non-agricultural use of municipal facilities. Is there a motion to adopt the ordinance?
So
I will.
moved. I will let you do it. This side is strong.
We're pulling our weight over here.
Yes, indeed. There's been a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
There's been a motion and a second to approve. This was introduced last month for publication, and I will turn it over to Mr. Chappell just to go through it in a very brief manner.
Mayor and the Board of Trustees, as indicated, this was discussed in some detail last month before it went to publication. The ordinances in the village that we had prior to this one had a provision for use of municipal facilities by nonprofit organizations only. The intent is to extend this to nonprofits as well as to individuals and to profit corporations. It doesn't have to be nonprofit. but at the same time, establish some guidelines as to how the permitting would be done. This says that the charge for these facilities will be determined from time to time by resolutions of the Board of Directors. So this will not be discretionary. It will be used what is in place today. We have a resolution. Any changes to that will be done by resolution. It does allow the mayor to approve application forms and adopt regulations for use, and otherwise tries to put some organization to those uses, which was happening without any authorization by ordinance prior to this time. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the trustees on this issue? Trustee Edwards.
Surprise, surprise here. So I have a lot of questions, but they're kind of geared towards, what can we do to put a polish on it? And then not lose sense of community. Is there a provision, and can we, within the statutes, give preference to somebody who actually lives in the village and owns property and offer them a different rate than we would somebody who lives from outside the community?
I don't believe there's any reference in the ordinance to preferences. There was some discussion about that, but a determination as to how that would be governed and all of that kind of stuff. It was deemed better to deal with things on a case-by-case basis if they were advantageous and not detrimental to the community. And it was also to perhaps encourage entities that were not members of the Los Ranchos community to see the community and understand its assets and promote the community in that way.
To the extent tie goes to the runner and you get two people competing for the same date, what is the criteria used to determine who gets the contract? Is it the highest bidder, or would there be a preference for locale of residence and things like that, like a scorecard?
Those kind of details are not in the ordinance. If it's important to have that kind of detail, including preferences for village functions, village residents, and that kind of things, this ordinance does allow for adoption of regulations to determine those kinds of details.
And Trustee Edwards, maybe if I might chime in just on those 2-point questions. One is the Board of Trustees did adopt, I'm going to say a little less than a year ago, a resolution that actually gives preference to residents of the village for, if you will, for the costs associated with the use of the facilities versus a non-resident outside the village, if you will. So there is a cost differential, number one. Number two is that we typically, when we have folks wanting to use the facility, typically, or the facilities, we, at this point, have just been on a first-come, first-served basis. Most people, such as, and I think they've, well, there she is, such as folks wanting to have weddings in those facilities, usually are, planning about a year in advance and calling us up, et cetera. On some occasions, very seldom do we have conflicts where perhaps two individuals want to use the facilities at the same date. Usually it's, there's a form they have to fill out. They submit the form in, and who gets the form in first gets, obviously the first opportunity at it. But, the village has had a pretty good process in place when I first got here, where it's a limited time of that someone can use the facility. For example, if it's a Saturday afternoon, for example, wedding or whatever, the key is handed to them to the facility at 5 o'clock in the evening. They have the evening to decorate and plan. They give a deposit so that there's any damage to the facility, and then they clean up the facility by the end of the day of the actual event. And so there's a lot of processes already in place. I think this one, for me, is important, as I think for all of you, in the sense that we've got some really good facilities, and I think folks like this young lady that spoke earlier about her wedding and being from here, where we can actually showcase what we have for our community and create some vitality. And so that's why I think this is an important ordinance. But a lot of the questions you're relating to are most of those already in place.
Okay. And then she asked the question about alcohol, and I guess it came up in a conversation somewhere that alcohol is likely. I think it should be allowed. I mean, we need to make ourselves relevant. You know, we don't live in a dry county. We're not even a dry village. And we let people be responsible, but we give them strong sticks that if they don't, there's a consequence. And
Mayor and Trustee Edward, this ordinance removed the requirement that alcohol could only be served at village-sponsored events. What it does, it says that the service of alcohol must comply with all rules of the state and the village, and that's the responsibility of the applicant, the user, and the village ordinances do not prohibit that anymore if it's in compliance with the state laws.
That is on page 48 of the board packet, so you may want to take a look at that. That spells it out pretty clearly.
So to follow up though on Trustee Edward, I guess the question I have then is that the liability though still is going to fall back to the village at some point, if there in fact is a safety issue or some other kind of issue that comes up during the event.
Part of the ordinance is, and the application process, Trustee Rynell, is to establish the insurance coverage and indemnifications that will be required for different kinds of uses. And so if there's going to be a use of alcohol, and that's part of the process, I would expect the village to require not only the third-party liability type coverage, but also dram shop coverage so that the village is protected. But that's something that can be outlined and approved in an application process, a contract process, or by further regulations. But that's anticipated that they must provide insurance and those kind of things in order to use the facility, and that's in the ordinance.
And I would just argue that Trustee Rynell right now, I'm nervous because our current ordinance says it has to be a village-sponsored event where you can actually serve alcohol, which is by far, I think, the opposite of what we want to do. In the case here, as I think as Mr. Chappell just elaborated on, putting a structure in place that complies with the state requirements for public events like this that serve, in this case, alcohol, and requiring security, insurance, et cetera, so that the village is really protected from any liabilities that might incur from such uses.
Mayor, if I might make another comment. Part of this was to try to specifically remove the requirement for village-sponsored events, because some people believe that you had to have a village-sponsored event to come in. And if it's a village-sponsored event, that puts the village in the direct fire for liability and other reasons because they are, in essence, a sponsor. This ordinance is to allow that to happen on a private basis with insurance without requiring the village's direct involvement in that context.
Oh, question. Trustee Edwards.
So can I follow up with one other question?
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
So then, would there be a necessity for us to identify those events that would not be approved? I mean, if somebody came in and did something or wanted to, an event that was just very, very contrary to either, the village, culture, tradition, et cetera, as well as potentially problems with state law, are there ways to determine then, or to define what would not be approved so people would know that before they attempted to come to the village?
Mayor and Trustee Rynell, I think that it's possible that there will be some things on the list that you would want to disapprove up front. This one says that the mayor has discretion and that determination is final. But if there are particular things that need to be done and sort of set in stone, again, rather than put those all in an ordinance like this, and if you want to make a change, you have to go back and amend the ordinances, then we have set up the process where the mayor could adopt regulations, and the Board of Trustees obviously will have some input into that, so that you can define these different areas at a regulation level rather than a basic law level, which would have to be handled by amendment with notice, to publish and come back on an amendment basis. So I think all of those are valid questions, but we're probably beyond what we needed, in my view, for authorization to do this and then have the implementation at a little different level. Rates, for instance, by resolution by the board, we have a resolution 2503-1, which currently sets the rates for both profit and nonprofit institutions. If you want to change that, then it's done by resolution, which is a bit less than an ordinance, but by the same token leaves the decision in the hands of the Board of Trustees. So we can do things like that.
Trustee.
I guess, Mayor, it's on you.
Well, I would say just clearly, even absent this change, even today, right? These facilities are public facilities, and fortunately, we don't have those kinds of events that occur, but from time to time, there may be something that may come up and may not be in my term of office, it may be in one of you all's terms of office as mayor or a future mayor, but I think that the point, and we all get, and that is this is an opportunity for us to do some really good things for the community and to create a whole new opportunity for a revenue stream, if you will, for the village as well. But anyway, Trustee Edward.
So a couple questions. One of the questions, to what degree is there, because a lot of power is rested in your hands or whoever's sitting in your seat, and Tim went to NMSU and you went to UNM, right?
Right.
You could have a personal vendetta and say, hey, there's no way I'm gonna let an Aggie rent this place ever. Would it be within an ordinance that there could be some sort of appeal, that if somebody is turned down and they don't feel like they got a fair shake? And I say that in follow-up to your question, Frank, about, what would you not allow? And I could see like maybe, somebody who is a hate group, you might not want them in there and take you off that hot seat, but there probably needs to be some sort of a mechanism to the citizen resident consumer that, doesn't get to be a petty difference to keep people from legitimately trying to rent a facility. I don't know if that's a shared concern or if it's just my concern, but it kind of came up in my thinking. Would that be in an ordinance?
Mayor and Trustee Edward, if you want a system for appeal, that should be in the ordinance, because the ordinance currently says that the decisions on the application will be made by the mayor, and that decision will be final. Part of the process was to not have if we're going to open these facilities for public use in this way, is to not have a drawn-out procedure of appeals and people end up in court. You know what happens for decisions at the Board of Trustees level, and there was some discussion about that. My personal thought was that it's better to have the decision made by the mayor, and if a decision is made incorrectly, then the Board of Trustees can always step in, so it doesn't happen again and again. But to say, no, I need I want to use it next month, and the mayor says no, then to have an appeal process that you have to accommodate, and, where you go with that was thought to be beyond the scope of what was needed here as compared to land use issues and those kind of things. But that's purely an administrative, kind of function that can determine that. That's certainly not up to me.
I would add one thing, though, Trustee Edwards, and I do think it's fair, the question. In regulation, we could actually set up a process so that if the mayor deems an event not to be in the best interest of the village, that the individual can appeal it to the board. or to PNZ or some other, if you will, so that they get a second sort of bite at the apple, if you will. And then that way you have a process. My sense would be is putting it in the ordinance would just make it cumbersome, because then now we have what Mr. Chappell just described. So I take to heart that maybe there's got to be an appeal process for that, and we can maybe put that together in the regulations and come back and we'll obviously have an opportunity to go over those with the Board of Trustees. Okay. Trustee Baldwin.
Two things. On page 49, for those who are following the packet, item B says specifically that municipal property shouldn't be used for general commercial or retail uses, but may be used for art shows, music events, farmers markets, or such uses where goods and products are sold or admission is charged, if deemed to be in the best interest and in accordance with the goals and purposes of the village. So we get some of that purpose statement there, but in an appropriate level for an ordinance rather than a regulation. The other is D, which says the village shall not discriminate or does not discriminate on the use of municipal property on any basis that would be prohibited by New Mexico or federal laws. So that's one where you get sort of the fairness piece and non-discrimination piece, but also there may very well be New Mexico or federal laws that would give us the ability to say, no to a hate group, for example. But I do think that this is the right level of ordinance, and that, we do administrative side all the time that comes through in resolutions to this body, and I think that's sort of the right balance.
Any other questions? Seeing no other questions, I would refer to the clerk to call the roll.
Thank you, Mayor. Trustee Baldwin?
Yes.
Trustee Edward?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Reinau?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0. And Mayor, I'd like to note that there were no individuals that signed up for either 309 or 310.
My apologies, I should have probably asked you first, so thank you very much for that. Now we'll go to item number 9, new business. Confirmation of employment pursuant to State Statute 3-11-9, 1 NMSA 1978. Subject to the approval of the majority of all members of the governing body, the mayor shall appoint all officers and employees. Today before you is Ana Rodriguez. She is our Chief Financial Officer. And I bring Ms. Rodriguez to you all for your confirmation to serve in the big shoes of Ms. Tammy Silva, who left us. And I would say, maybe I'll just defer to Mr. Avila to talk a little bit about Ms. Rodriguez's background, just to give you a sense that she is very, very qualified for this role.
Mayor, Board of Trustees. Ms. Rodriguez comes to us from DFA, the Department of Finance and Administration. She has experience there, and previous with accounting and audit services, along with education. To say that she is very qualified for this position. She has been chosen through interview, recommended to the mayor, and the mayor has initiated the appointment. The long-term serving with Ms. Rodriguez, it's been a joy, and we're digging through accounts and budgets together, and it's been a lot of fun.
All right, thank you very much. Do we have a motion to approve the confirmation of Ms. Rodriguez?
I'll make a motion.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
I'll second. I don't know who got it.
Okay, we'll give it to Mr. Trustee Edwards, moved, seconded by Trustee Baldwin. Do we have any other comments? Not. Everyone in favor of a confirmation of Ms. Rodriguez signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Congratulations, Anna. Welcome aboard. Thank you much. Yeah. Go ahead, Anna. I think that sometimes those work very well, sometimes they don't.
Mayor and Trustees, it's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to working with everyone.
Thank you very much. By the way, she also has a very small little child that she takes care of. And so now that I'm a grandpa, we share stories and she educates me about what needs to happen. All right, with that, we'll now move over to item B. Resolution number 2026-0301, a resolution extending the time and acceptance by the Public Service Company of New Mexico, the Village of Los Ranchos, the Albuquerque Franchise Ordinance 290. I'm going to turn it over to, well, first we need a motion to approve the agreement, the resolution, if you will.
I will make excuse me, motion to approve resolution number 2026-03-1, extending time for acceptance by Public Service Company in New Mexico.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
It's been seconded by Trustee Edwards. All right, Mr. Chappell, would you give us a little background on this particular issue?
Mayor and trustees, a bit earlier, there were issues with respect to the P&M subcontractors, and the village staff started looking into that, and it appears that the P&M franchise agreement actually expired in 2016. In 2022, and it could be extended just by doing nothing for a period of time, another 5 years by continued use. In 2022, the village passed Ordinance 290, which was a new franchise ordinance, which added some more detail than their previous one, and also changed the franchise fee from 2% to 3%. That ordinance required that that P&M accept the ordinance within 30 days after its adoption, or it was null and void. We could not find an acceptance by P&M at that time, and the ordinance itself said that the 30 days could be extended by resolution of the Board of Trustees to allow P&M to accept the ordinance. So this resolution is purely to extend the time for P&M to accept the ordinance. They have 15 days after this ordinance to accept it. The change in franchise fees will commence 30 days after signing the acceptance. And in the summary that I provided, it shows estimated difference in the franchise fees to the village from the P&M ordinance under Ordinance 290 than has been being collected in the past.
With that being said, trustees, this, as Mr. Chappell's just indicated, we were getting work on the right-of-way in the publicly owned right-of-way where we didn't know the subcontractors and they had not pulled any permits with our planning and zoning department, et cetera. And so this led to a lot of work and discovery, and lo and behold, we had this issue. I met with P&M. They basically said, look, probably everyone thought it was in place and nobody really went back to look at it. But having said all of that, I talked to Mr. Chappell, and this was a way to get to the resolution that was approved by the Board of Trustees in 2022. And P&M agreed to all the conditions in that franchise that was passed at that time, which comports with some of the more modern franchises that most cities have now, including Albuquerque, Bernalillo County, Rio Rancho, et cetera. And so the franchise fee is for the rental of the use of the right-of-way in the corridor. And those fees come to the village for our ability to maintain, if you will, the right-of-way and make sure that it's obviously safe for the community as a whole, but also that P&M is ensuring that they are a tenant of the village on the right-of-way. So with that being said, any questions on this particular matter? Trustee Edwards.
So you did say we have been collecting a franchise fee, correct?
The mayor and Trustee Edward, I understand they have been paying the 2% franchise fee up through the present time. They did not quit paying that. And because this, add one thing, because of the other differences in the franchise agreements, the acceptance form, which has been prepared and they're prepared to sign, indicates that they will accept in essence, retroactively from 2022, the requirements and obligations under this franchise ordinance, except for the 3% franchise fee. So we don't have a gap there.
So we could make this thing 6%, and based upon the way we've been operating, they're probably not gonna sign that, and they're probably not gonna sign this. They don't even have a representative here, do they?
We do not have a representative this evening.
And so whatever we pass, if they don't sign it, we get to charge them? Because it seems that's how it's transpired for the last, what, 10 years?
Mayor and Trustee Edward, I think that puts the village in an unusual spot, and I think that's the reason everybody wants to get it resolved. And it was if you terminate their franchise agreement, do we no longer have electricity for the residents of the village? And so there is a significant benefit to the village to do this. So it's only on a cooperative basis that they agree to abide by ordinances with respect to excavations and maintenance and constructions and all of that, and pay a franchise fee, which is pretty typical at this stage.
It just seems like a little bit of a paradox that we call it an agreement. But they're not agreeing to anything.
Well, the
Go ahead, Trustee.
question I would have then, to follow up, Trustee Edward, is that at this point, though, have they been made aware that there potentially is going to be a change in the franchise fee so that they can, in fact, be able to confirm with us that they're going to accept the new ordinance as posted?
Mayor and Trustee, right now, if you look at the financial impact in terms of what the fees are, these came directly from P&M recently because of the discussions with P&M. So they are aware of it, and they did the calculations. That's where we got that.
And trustees, just to put a fine point on it, I met with them, went through the contract. They've agreed that this is in some ways, they concurred that they also missed the boat. They should have signed this when they had the opportunity. And the reason for the resolution is that, as anything else in this legal world of ours, I relied on our attorney to ensure that we held them accountable to all of the requirements that they had agreed to 2 years ago or 3 years now. And they've agreed that they would sign this as soon as this resolution was approved. So, so to your point, Trustee, if they don't, for some reason, we'll be back negotiating, and we'll have to decide as we move forward. But one of the things that is important, and I think Mr. Chappell can allude to this, there are some preemptions from the state statutes from the state as it relates to governing of franchises across the state for utility companies. So you can't keep them out of the right-of-way if they're providing a service. And so I think we've got an agreement here that we can all live with, I guess is my sense.
And I'm not trying to be a bull in China shop here or anything. I'm operating on a little bit of ignorance.
Sure.
Being new and everything. But one thing that kind of came up, in running for the office of trustee, there was a fairly routine complaint amongst people here that the cell phone coverage is as bad as it is. And I know that there gets to be some debates between the different utility agencies and companies as to whose infrastructure is whose infrastructure. Does it go in at the same time? How do they collaborate? And I don't know, is a document like this the document you'd use to say, hey, P&M, you need to coordinate, collaborate, and cooperate with Verizon, T-Mobile, or whoever to put in the distributed cell phone coverage as a means to make this a part of your franchise fee? Because it's kind of a safety issue. Is that something that you would do in a document like this, or would that be completely different? And if we did it here, it would muddle this up.
Mayor and Trustee Edward, I am not aware of how you can combine a franchise arrangement with a public utility with private carriers such as cell phone carriers and things like that. They're two different aspects and two different and we are dealing with some cell tower issues at the present time. I think the option there is for the village to negotiate and enforce provisions related to the cell towers that provide service in the village over which it has control, which is only one. But I'm not aware of any way that under the regulations of the PRC for the utility companies and the FCC for the telephone companies, cell tower companies, that we can ever mesh those into a composite agreement. It would take somebody smarter than I am to do that, to figure out the interchange.
Because of the semi-rural nature that we're trying to maintain in our village, and because of the cost of infrastructure and having so many towers, distributed 5G technology is built on power poles. And why should we be putting up more power poles? It's clearly in our right-of-way. They're paying us for this right-of-way. And I think as a village, strategically, we need to think about this. I mean, in my orchard, there's places where I have 0 cell phone coverage. If I fell out of a tree, I'm dead because I'm not going to be able to call anybody. And that's not uncommon. I think it's a safety issue, an economic development issue. And I just want to say that, P&M is a great partner to the greater community, but they also have infrastructure that other partners within our community could utilize without us having to put up more towers needlessly. And I just wonder if a document like this would provide an avenue for which you're in our right-of-way, then you need to cooperate with other entities that are governed by the PRC to do so.
I have a couple of thoughts on that, but I'll defer to Trustee Baldwin.
So, obviously there's nothing more maddening than having a right-of-way dug up and then 2 weeks later it dug up again, because the next person's coming in. But that's why this agreement is so important, because in the absence of having an agreement that spells out what their responsibilities are, including coming to Director Schultz for permits, that's how we maintain control over the coordination, is if we get a permit in and it's like, hey, this is going to happen really closely, then we can have some of those conversations. I mean, we're talking with the Water Authority, down the resolution pile a bit, about doing it concurrently with our 4th Street programs. And that's because things got a little cattywampus, and now this is a way to have everybody kind of align better so we don't lose more time in a really important project. And I think these types of agreements are how we can do quite a bit of what you're hoping to do, because I think it's maddening when they happen on top of each other, but that's where the village can play a role.
Yeah. Well, let me add this as well, because I do think this goes to your point, Trustee Edwards. Keep in mind that even the cell phone companies have to have the same agreement as P&M with the village. So they have to have a franchise agreement to use the right-of-way. So a case in point, Easy Fiber is interested in bringing in 5G into the village, et cetera. One of the first things we did with them is say, look, we don't want you to dig up the streets. You can work with P&M to see if we can use their utility poles to hang their, if you will, system. And lo and behold, for the most part, their representation to us has been is that on 4th Street, because they don't want to tear up 4th Street and all the work and money that we put into 4th Street, they're using P&M utilities facilities to provide that service. So in our negotiations with them, we can use that as leverage to say, well, if you want to be in our right-of-way, you need to go negotiate an agreement with the utility company, with P&M in this case, to use their fixed assets in the village to hang your equipment. And then they obviously are going to pay P&M a fee for the use of their poles, which just increases the percentage of GRT that P&M makes that helps us pays us from the 3%, right? So it becomes an aggregate. So yeah, and the reason I know a lot about this is simply because we had a lot of this in the city where we have all these systems hanging on utility poles all over the place. And so that's how it creates the connectivity that we want. I think that the interesting part as it relates to your point, as it relates to areas of the village where we do have some problems with cell towers, it really is because those, basically the radio systems or the phone systems that we have in our community have decided not to use the utilities that are in place, but to put towers to cover a broader area, and you end up with these dead spots where the towers just don't connect. And now they are coming back and saying, well, maybe we should have put some of these on some of the utility poles, right? So that you get better coverage. So I do think that there's some opportunity for us to be able to leverage the utility and the infrastructure they have in place, because they will need a franchise as well.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep. Any other questions? If not, we have a motion to approve. Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you. Trustee Baldwin?
Yes.
Trustee Edward?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Rhino?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to item C, Resolution 2026-03-02, a resolution authorizing the approving submission of a completed application for financial assistance and project approval to the New Mexico Finance Authority. Mr. Avila to explain.
Mr. Mayor, Board of Trustees, we have before you a resolution authorizing and approving submission of a completed application to New Mexico Finance Authority. This is for a partial grant, partial federally funded, and would require some match from the village to cover all our facilities. They're named Agri-Nature Center, Del Norte Open Space, Village Hall, and Fire Substation, 4th Street Village Parking Lot, Alfred Garcia Community Barn, and the old Village Hall where pickleball courts are. This is required in the application, one, naming a representative so that they can make the application and communicate on this particular item. And along with the application that we've made, this resolution is the last checkpoint on making sure that this application is in and that can be reviewed to see if we were awarded this application.
And members, trustees, this is a solar application for solar facility installation to help us with not only with our utility costs, but also to create some added benefit for the community. If you think about, if you will, the parking lot where we have the farmer's market right now, it's an open air parking lot. It gets awfully hot during the summer. It has very little protection. One of the projects that we're applying for is potentially putting in basically a solar system or solar panels on that parking lot. They would offer a canopy, if you will, a portal type, so that a good portion of the lot will be now in a shaded area. Looking at putting the same systems at Agri-Nature Center so that we can reduce our costs from, if you will, electrical costs there, and maybe even potentially putting in additional coverage at that place so that we can have more additional shade. The idea here is we've got some state funds that I have been told by representatives from the state that are not moving very quickly, that a lot of communities are not accessing those funds. And I think I heard many of you say some time ago, we really got to get aggressive in looking for opportunities to do some investment in our own infrastructure. And so this, to me, is an opportunity to see if we can get some of these facilities, if you will, constructed, and more importantly, helping us with our operating costs for all of the facilities around. And I would just put a special emphasis on the Alfredo Garcia barn, because that particular facility is electrical system. If you plug more than 2 blow dryers, the breaker goes down, because it doesn't have the, if you will, the infrastructure. Part of this grant would be to put in a solar, if you will, canopy on the roof of that, but also to upgrade the electrical system in that building so that we can use it for more activities, as we've talked about earlier. So there are some really good opportunities to use leverage the state funds to get some of that stuff done. With that being said, are there any questions? If not, we need a motion for approval.
So moved.
Second.
Moved in second. You guys are awfully quiet on this side of the table tonight.
I have a question.
Oh, I am so sorry. Trustee Kiefer.
That's all right. Thank you, Mayor. Of these locations, have we considered the Anderson property as well in that house?
We looked at that. Go ahead, John.
Yes, and as in the application, it's being considered really as part of the Agri-Nature Center. So it does have some capability for having solar there.
So it would be both the actual ag center and the house? Yes.
Correct.
Perfect, thank you.
Any other questions? Trustee Baldwin.
In that same lineup, I think, one, this is phenomenal. I love using other people's money to do good things for the village. And I think that combination of solar array on the roofs and on what I would say sort of carports in the parking areas that we're talking about is great. I would want to make clear to the public, and I'm hoping this is the intent, is that the Del Norte open space and the fields at Hartnett Park aren't suddenly going to become an array. That we're going to maintain the open space and the parklands part of it, but just be smart about the parking areas and other places where we could use some shade but capture the sun.
Yeah, no question, Trustee. I think the intent here is to use existing facilities where possible and to provide opportunities for shade structures where practical.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay. All right, go ahead, Trustee Edwards.
I just want to say, Mayor Real, this is awesome. I love it. I have solar. This is going to differentiate us from a lot of communities. I'm glad you're doing it, man. It's super.
Awesome, thank you very much, appreciate that. And having said that, we'll go to the vote. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. Trustee Baldwin?
Yes.
Trustee Edward?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Raynow?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Very good. We'll now go to item D, resolution number 2026-03-3. A resolution recommending budget revisions related to the Capital Project Infrastructure Fund 311, Department 3104 for the Village of Los Ranchos de Albuquerque. And I will now go to Ms. Rodriguez to explain the bar.
Thank you, Mayor and Trustees. So to give you some background, the village received a grant from the New Mexico Department of Transportation for the first phase of Rio Grande. The total project is estimated at a little bit over 1.2 million, but the village is required to match 25%, which is a little bit over 310,000. During this fiscal year, we are expecting $60,000 to be expended for that match. In order for us to do this budget request, we will require a transfer from the general fund, LGIP cash reserve of $60,000. Stand for any questions.
And just for trustees, the 60,000 just represents what we will need between today and the end of the fiscal year. And as the project starts to move forward in the next fiscal year, we'll include that in the budget that will come to you all for approval later in the next few months. All right, we need a motion to approve this resolution.
All motion.
It's been moved. Do we have a second?
Second.
And seconded. Any other discussion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Thank you. Trustee Baldwin?
Yes.
Trustee Edward?
Yes.
Trustee Kiefer?
Yes.
Trustee Raynow?
Yes.
Motion passes 4-0.
Very good. Item E, ordinance number 311, an ordinance amending 7.4.23 of the Village of Los Ranchos Code approval for publish and advertising. We'll now go to Ms. Schultz.
Mayor Rael, Board of Trustee members, before you this evening is approval to publish an ordinance that would amend the village's nuisance ordinance related to daytime quiet hours. The village's nuisance ordinance outlines how noisy you can or cannot be during what today says the hours of 6 a.m. and 10 p.m. The intent of this ordinance is to change that time frame from beginning at 6 a.m. to starting at 8 a.m. So this would effectively mean that there is more quiet time in the village. And it also creates an exemption that does not exist in the nuisance code today for if the government, whether it's us or another appropriate governmental body needs to do emergency utility work outside of those quiet hours, that they would be permitted to do so under the noise ordinance. This is a direct response to some public comment and public outreach that the village has heard about noisy mornings and trying to protect some of the quiet mornings here in the village. I can stand for any questions.
Any questions? We need a motion to permit the ordinance to be published, and obviously it'll be at our next trustee meeting that will adopt the actual ordinance if you choose to do so.
I would like to move publication and advertising of ordinance number 311.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion?
Mayor, if you don't mind.
Trustee Kiefer?
Shanna, is there any way to, and I know I hate to differentiate things, but I mean, we live in a village that a lot of people contract landscape services. And those landscapers start sometimes earlier than 8 a.m. because, especially in the summer heat, they want to be done before, 1, 2 in the afternoon. So is there a way to distinguish heavy machinery, which is kind of what public comment was really talking about, and construction noise versus, people that do their landscaping early in the morning? Residential noise.
Mayor Rael, Trustee Kiefer, the ordinance today does already have some exemptions in it. For example, livestock and agricultural activities aren't subject to the noise levels. So I think it would be within the purview of this body to create additional exemptions as the body sees fit. If you're interested in doing that, I would request maybe that those amendments be proposed tonight. Under the new rules of procedure, you can't make substantive amendments at the next hearing without it having to be republished, aka deferred. So if you are able to make those changes this evening, that would be much appreciated.
Is there anything currently now for residential type noises such as landscaping?
Mayor Rael, Trustee Kiefer, the only exemption, and I'll just read it straight from the code, says these provisions shall not apply to any noise from livestock or agricultural activities, but shall apply to noise from domesticated animals or household pets. So livestock and agricultural activities are the only exemptions currently stated in the code.
Well, I would argue that we should at least have something for human beings in there too. So
Some are animals.
since the animals get their choice. But anyway, go ahead.
How about teenagers?
Yeah, Trustee Ball.
So, I think that one of the sort of sideboards on this is the decibel level. And so if the landscaper can be doing a lot of landscapey things that aren't necessarily cranking it up to 50 decibels at the property line. So, I think that we also have to be, fair and consistent, because somebody's morning enjoyment doesn't get less disturbed if there's a 75 decibel noise from a construction of a, development being built versus, a landscaping entity that I don't know what would have 75 decibels. But let's just say they do have something that's super loud. That's, that's a barrier to enjoyment. The neighbor's going to get woken up from either thing that's loud. So I think we can play around with whether it's 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, or 8 o'clock. We can play around with the decibel level. I think livestock and agricultural activities, again, if you've got dogs, doing like really loud barking at the property line, I could see where that would be, super problematic, and they don't get to do that as domesticated animals. So I think that the carve out for livestock and agricultural activities is a part of the ethos of this village. But I think the rest can be controlled by the time and the decibel level.
Let me make one suggestion that might be easy, and I think I get where Trustee Kiefer's perspective is on this. If we could find a definition for landscaping as an exemption, I think most of the reason this came up, and you all recall, is construction noise, really. Mm-hmm. Right? And I happen to know that every time Waste Management comes to pick up my neighbor's trash, which is usually at 7 o'clock in the morning, all I hear is bang, 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 right? But I also know that my other neighbor has a rooster, and you hear that in the morning too. But I do think that there's maybe a sense of practicality here. Maybe Shanna, and I don't know, Bill, if you and Shanna could maybe collaborate a bit here. If we put the exemption in for landscaping or residential maintenance or something like that we could define, I think that would be, I think most of us, at least I would speak for myself, that I think that's something that we can probably live with as an amendment for tonight. And then obviously we can fine tune it if we have to is that something that we can work with?
Mayor Royale, yes, I think that seems perfectly appropriate.
Okay.
Can I?
Go ahead, Trustee Rana.
Oh, go ahead, yeah. Well, I was going to just ask one other question. So then, as another example is that APS is doing quite a bit of construction in the village right now. And they sometimes start before 8, okay? And that's going to be a kind of another can of worms to deal with because APS tends to do their own thing. But I mean, and again, I don't think that we want to come up with just a total list of exemptions here. Right. I don't think that's very, very useful. But somehow we need to be able to kind of control that kind of large-scale noise in the village. I wouldn't have a problem at all in terms of landscaping, in terms of home maintenance, but when you get other kinds of large equipment operating, it could even be P&M equipment operating, as an example. So so again, I'm not quite sure how to handle those kinds of, that kind of language.
Well, I would think that if we made the exemption for landscaping and maintenance and home maintenance would cover at least what we're concerned about with today, and let us look at it the course of the next meeting and see if there's a further refinement of that. So we have a motion on the table for approval. So Mr. Chappell, I see you've got a thought you'd like to share.
Mayor, I had just one question. In working with what you have suggested, is there any thought about looking at the decibel levels? I don't know how many of you have looked at what decibel levels really mean in comparison to what you actually hear. And I think you would be surprised at how loud things are that are not considered noisy. I mean, the decibel levels, and I have been involved in some disputes with respect to that. But just common noises as to what the decibel level is, and I don't know if anyone would like to take a look at that to see if this 40, I mean, if it's almost impossible to keep 40 decibels inside your property, because when you start your car and take off, you're probably over 40 decibels, And so I was just wondering if there was any reason to look at those kind of things.
I would say, before we get too far down the decibel level, if this could become a long night, if we all decided that, let me suggest, this was mostly in response to the construction happening, to be candid about it, on Chavez and Guadalupe Trail. It also is result of the construction happening at both of our public facility schools, both, Coronado and Taylor. I mean, those are the big construction projects that are really within neighborhoods. So my thought would be, trustees, I think Shanna would agree that the decibel level conversation is probably for a lot longer period of time for us to think about, because Mr. Chappell makes a good point. 50 decibels is not that loud. Yeah. And that's where our ordinance is today. We would require us a lot more study and get some good, if you will, groups to come and look at what decibel levels make sense. So if I might just maybe ask for your indulgence in that we just make the amendment that we just described and come back at a later date and look at the actual decibel issue and have a lot more robust conversation about that. It just simply because if we start on that path today, I will guarantee you that construction project on Guadalupe will be done before we make a decision. And I'd like to at least, and just to be fair, and also just add this point, I asked Shanna to go and ask the contractor if he would, because they're starting really early. And Shanna came back and said, look, your own ordinance says I can do this. So it feels to me like it's a bit of a response to the situation, and we do have that ability to do that in a more hasteful, in a good way, and do it quickly before the project, is completed. So with that being said, I might just get us back to the conversation. We have a motion for approval in a second. We have an amendment by Trustee Kiefer to include landscaping / residential maintenance. And we should maybe define residential maintenance as landscaping maintenance, perhaps?
Mayor Rial, I think I can work within the language just residential maintenance.
Okay.
Maybe to say residential maintenance, comma, not to include construction.
Right. Okay.
If you make an amendment to insert that language, that is something I can enforce.
So Trustee Kiefer, is that an amendment?
That's acceptable.
That's acceptable. Do we have a second for the amendment?
Second.
It's been moved in second. All those in favor of the amendment signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? All right, now we move to the question. Trustee Edwards.
This is just for clarifying. So on the Airbnb permit, I think quiet hours are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. Do we need to have these things kind of jive?
Mayor Rial, Trustee Edward, that's a good question. What I'm hoping is that the bed and breakfast regulations refer back to the noise ordinance and that they're not explicitly stated in the zoning code. If they're explicitly stated in the zoning code, then we're going to have two different numbers floating around, but that is something that I can check on.
Okay. Then the other thing is whether this would flow back to us, and it's a pass-onable expense, but I think in some cases, some people, if you granted them 10 days and it cost them $2,000 to be able to make the noise they needed to make at a certain time of day, if you told the residents of the village that we're going to knock down an extra $2,500, I mean, we talk all the time about economic development. We need to create more tax dollars. Well, maybe we create an opportunity for a business to do something, not hamper them so much, and say, if you want to do it, it's going to cost you, and it's going to cost you enough you're going to think twice about it, and if you do it, you're probably not going to do it for very long.
Mm-hmm.
And, give people a choice. I don't always want to give people it's a dead end every time, but, think pragmatically about this. We fund ourselves through user fees, we fund ourselves through taxes of various types, and we really don't have many user fees. The only one I can think of is a sign thing. If you're a realtor, you got to pay $35 to put on a sign, and that's to track it in hopes that we get gross receipts taxes from that sale. I don't know if in an ordinance you could say, we do allow 10 days to operate outside of this, but there's a fee in order to do so, and it's a meaningful fee. It's a fee that would cover any sort of monitoring, and it would a fee that would make administratively worth our while. I don't know.
Mayor Rial, Trustee Edward, that already does exist. The nuisance ordinance has an exemption process for if you need to be noisier than the allowed noise levels. There is a permit application already on the village's website where you can apply to be noisier than the decibel levels during daytime hours. You're not allowed to be noisier during the nighttime hours. So that framework is already in place. I'm not sure what that permit costs. I haven't seen one come through the department since I've been here, but I presume that in some resolution, this board set that fee at some point. So the exact framework you're talking about is in place.
And I would suggest that we make that fee significant enough so that we can all wear flak jackets, so that whenever the neighbors come in for those 10 days, that we can resist the onslaught of concern. But you're right. I mean, we've used financial incentives to change people's habits from time to time. So anyway, go ahead, Trustee Kiefer.
One more question, Shanna, and I don't know if we need to exempt this out or if we just kind of look away. 4th of July. Tends to be a louder holiday.
Yes, it does. And I think that that's one of those that, that every community struggles with, to be candid about it. I don't know that, that we have a fireworks, if you will, requirement, or even worse than that, unfortunately, people are shooting. Let's look at that and see what, I don't know that anybody has figured that out. Shanna.
Mayor Rael, Trustee Kiefer, that would be extremely challenging to regulate. I mean, you could create an exemption to say that fireworks are allowed on this particular day. I've never seen a community do that. Communities tend to not want more fireworks in their neighborhoods. And even so, if you think about how the department would actually go out and enforce that on 4th of July, on one-off instances, I think that's incredibly challenging. The noise ordinance is really for persistent noise, where someone is creating this nuisance on a repeat basis. And so happy to look at it, but I don't know that it's a big concern here in the village.
Just a spontaneous thought.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things we should also look at, maybe Mr. Chappell, if you have a moment in your busy work, I do think that there is a state preemption on fireworks, and there may be some state law on this, because years ago in my previous life, we tried to do something, and it wasn't like less than 6 months, we were back in the legislature, and a very powerful fireworks lobby just basically preempted local governments from a lot of things, and I think that may have been one of them. But anyway, with that being said, as things go.
Mayor Rael, if I just might make one more comment in response to the concerns about APS. At least from a land use perspective, APS is generally not subject to local regulations. And so I'm not sure if that would also translate over to local ordinances, in which case APS would not be subject to our noise ordinance to begin with. So their construction would not be impacted by any change here.
Although I would say, to their credit, they have complied with our if you will, the light ordinance requirements and other dark skies ordinances, et cetera. And I know that they have said to us that we pride ourselves in working with the local governments in respecting their ordinances. So if we don't have it in the books, it's hard to go and tell them to do it. So I think it's the right step. So with that being said, any other conversation on this? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. All right, ordinance is now available for publication with the amendment. Now we'll move on to item 10, Chief Financial Officers or Chief Financial Officers Report and Administrators Report. So we'll go to Anna.
Mr. Mayor and Board of Trustees, before you is the cash report for the month of February 2026. The ending cash balance at February 28, 2026 was $15,359,484.22, which is an increase of $321,810.24 for this month. As of February, the year-to-date excess revenue over expenditures is $1,052,034.39. There are no unusual items to note, and you can see there are 6 items listed for significant expenditures. I stand for any questions.
Any questions?
I have a quick question, because we just talked about this franchise fee thing. Where would I find the franchise fee revenues?
They are located under the general fund. Let me get my chart of accounts. So they are under general fund, department 0099, and they are under account 31100. And I think on your packet, it's just included under general fund revenues, but I can give you that detail.
Okay.
Okay.
May I interject? This is Tammy.
Hey, Tammy, you all of a sudden, the voice came out of nowhere.
Voice of Tammy.
Welcome.
Hi.
Hi there.
Hi, guys. Mayor, trustees, just to help on out as well. In your packet on page 78, we have like a summary of the revenue, and the second line item there has your total of the franchise tax for all of our franchise agreements for the month.
What page?
And it was $20,705, looks like.
Okay. The skies opened and Tammy spoke.
Thanks, Tammy.
Thanks, Tammy.
Sure thing.
Any other questions? All right, we'll move on then to Mr. Avila's report. While John's getting ready, as you all have seen from the report that was in your packet, there's been a lot of work that we've been doing, especially at the Del Norte open space, getting ready for planting season and getting some funds that we needed to expend before the end of the fiscal year. And I'm happy to report that we're gonna expend those funds, which is always important, because when we go back for more, they like to make sure you spent what they gave you.
It looks good.
And it's looking really good. So anyway, John, now that you've got your stuff together, go for it.
Yes, I was able to actually handle the paper, turn that page. So a highlight, and then I'll go through the departments in our legislative update, and we expect that we'll have a further report on that here coming soon. Capital outlay funding, the Agri-Nature Center and Anderson House improvements is $2.5 million. Municipal facilities improvements, $600,000. 4th Street and Osuna intersection improvements, $100,000. Veterans Memorial at Hartneck Park, plan, design, and construct is $152,000. Paseo del Norte improvements, and this is for the noise mitigation, $500,000. And then statewide, through the Department of Transportation, 1.5 in bonding package for funding. So, we want to thank our legislators and governor for their efforts and the support they've given the village.
John, let me just say this to the trustees and to the community. One of the important pieces of going to the Municipal League meeting, and some of you were there with me this year, is just getting an opportunity to talk to legislators and to the governor's staff about the needs of the community. And I'm really excited because, almost $4 million of funding for the village is pretty significant. And there was a lot of support from our legislator, Representative DeHockman Vihil really stepped up, Senator Katie Duhigg, who represents a good portion of the village, Senator Debbie O'Malley. Those were the three that really supported getting us the funding for these projects. And then I would also say, senators that aren't even in the village helped. Senator Linda Lopez from the South Valley was very excited about supporting the Veterans Memorial Project. And other legislators, will get the names to you, and we'll have a full report from our lobbyists at the April meeting. But look, I have always said that if we just focus on getting some stuff done and show folks that we can get some things done, we can really make this place even better than we already have. And so I'm really excited about the money for the Agri-Nature Center. I would also say a big thank you to the governor. The governor has matched the legislators' funding for the Agri-Nature Center project, and otherwise we would not have the amount that we have available to do that work. And recognizing that the noise on Paseo and what might be more, if you will, useful long-term for mitigating that noise is still up for conversation with the DOT, but the $500,000 that was appropriated is a really good, serious down payment to getting the DOT in particular to focus on the fact that our community has some significant issues with noise and with the speeds that are occurring on that facility on a day-to-day basis. And so both Representative DeHockman Vihil and Senator Duhigg said, look, we know this isn't get us a lot way further down the road, but at least it shows that we're willing to start putting some money up on this issue. I'm actually having conversations with our congressional delegation to see if there's some federal funds that we might be able to get for noise mitigation on that facility as well. So we'll continue to really move that project. But look, I think for the village as a whole, when we talk about folks in Santa Fe focusing on the village, I mean, we do have a very unique community. And to a lot of folks, a perception that we have a very affluent community. But as we know, living in this big, if you will, melting pot of the region of the Rio Grande Valley, we also are impacted tremendously by the communities around us and vice versa. So having legislators from outside the village, if you will, area support us was really gratifying. And I just want to just make sure that we all know that that we owe them a debt of gratitude for their support and the governor on this funding. And we can do some really cool things. I know that Aaron and Andrew are excited to look at what we can possibly do along with the Ag Committee and others there at the Agri-Nature Center. And there is a small portion of that bucket of $2.5 million to do some work on the Anderson House as well, and to try and at least do some work to. It needs some basic maintenance. It needs some work that we should get done so that we can ensure that that facility doesn't deteriorate. But also, as we start moving the discussion forward in the community about its future use, we'll have a little bit of funds to do that. And then last but not least, I would say to you, all of you, look, this facility is very interesting. It was a fire station, and it was converted by folks that were here before us and did the best they could with what they had. And I'm happy to say that, look, it's served the community, but it needs some work. And so having some additional monies for municipal facilities, as we start, looking at what we're doing here in this building, for example, our conference room is a hallway. I can't get to the bathrooms unless I open the door from the conference room to get to the bathroom, or one of the bathrooms on this end. So there's some real functional issues that we've got to address here. And when I went up there to talk to the legislators, I said, look, we just need some money to do some basic improvements in the facility. And having that significant amount of $600,000 gets us there, helps us decide what we're going to do with Old Village Hall as well. And so, again, really happy to see that we were able to do some good things with the legislature. So with that being said, I'll turn it over out to
I don't think there's any more to say.
John about all the other things that we're doing in the village.
Actually, the mayor directed us to apply for congressional directed spending. And so we put in for those big items like the noise and dealing with that. So we'll see how that turns out. Then those conversations will follow. Part of this process is putting together the infrastructure capital improvements plan, and that is a function that is required when money's being programmed. So they plug it back in through that system. So I just let you all know that, and that we are working on that here for this fiscal year to have it ready for inclusion in the state system, and making sure that that those programs that we want to pursue in the next capital outlay are there, as well as other projects. The budget, I have a misprint here where I confused the internal deadlines with what was due at DFA. So for May 1st, we want to have our budgets together so that we can get them on the May calendar, so that by June 1st, they are implemented into DFA. So there's that is coming up here soon. As far as the project is concerned, the mayor has commented on spending our projects down. We have the quality of life funds that were placed at Del Norte Open Space are spent down, and then we've also started spending down another 100,000 that was for open space. And you see some of the fruits of that. That's actually the ADA parking with connection to the walking trail, which is a crusher fine, which is compatible with ADA. So that's in line. We're also getting in irrigation underground, and this will also, the second half of that irrigation will be concrete, and this will allow us to get MRGCD water on our fields, and that's happening as we speak, along with making sure we have the actual water to put on those fields. So that's also in progress. It's not on the page, but that's happening so that we don't, we don't run dry as bad as it could be. And these conveyances will actually help reduce any kind of loss as well. So hopefully it's considered a long-term investment for our particular environmental situation. I'd like to point out in planning and zoning, something that's not on the page here is that in district court, there's a couple of cases that are still being pursued doggedly. The staff is following up on that. They're following up with the public safety and the courts to make sure that although it's a long run, it's a hard run, they're still staying with it so that these things can be completed to our satisfaction. So it's behind the scenes, you don't see it, but it's going on. At the Agri-Nature Center, if it hasn't been said, this weekend, Saturday, be there. We have staff helping out with the Ag Center as well from the other departments, and so we want this event to kick off and be a good and exciting event for everybody, and hopefully something that would continue through the years. As far as facilities, they have been, and you've seen that, working on a lot of trail work, amongst other things, but that's what you've seen a lot of, is that they've actually improved the trail there outside of Coronado School, and then also the trail there at the Del Norte open space. So it's making it that much more pleasurable for people to get out and walk and see the progress that we've made. With some of the projects that we have coming up, we have till the end of the month to be participatory in the survey for Rio Grande, and the engineers working on that will come back with the results of that survey and what they've seen out in the field. As far as public safety, I've been trying to field most of those calls and then work with BCSO on any kind of issues out there. The meeting on 3/11 was for the Homeowners Association Neighborhood Watch. A lot of folks were represented there, and they walked through what kind of calls we're getting and the kind of patterns that are out there. They found out that we let them know that we're also taking a look at the intersection of 4th and I believe it's Ranchitos. Yes, that's where it is. And Fred has been helping us out. He's got some cameras out there to measure at least the speed and volumes. There is a bit of a turn in that road, so that's going to be looked at with the whole 4th Street improvement project. And they'll be looking at the whole road as well. For Main Street, I'm just pointing out of the many things that are being done, is they're working towards a Father's Day special event, which is another car tour on 4th Street during Father's Day, and they're working with Corey Ringo and folks, and then also with Route 66 associations to have that during that month. So that's some of the work that's being done there. Those are the highlights. Stand for questions.
Any questions of Mr. Avila? I would also just point out, John, behind you is Magda, who is our Main Street Executive Director, and I don't know if Magda, if you have anything to add to the report that John just provided as it relates to Main Street. You might come up to the mic so that way, or get the mic from John.
Thanks. Just to add, we're working on a couple of grants for economic development and related to Route 66 and getting with the city and other entities in New Mexico along the route to celebrate the Mother Road, this centennial year. So we're gathering information on that. When I say we, I mean Economic Development Main Street Board. Today we received officially, I didn't tell Trustee Kiefer yet, that we are now 501(c) or C3. And so very happy about that. It's faster than we thought. And we're moving forward. We're moving forward and appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that being said, we are now at that point in the program that we go to our trustees for their reports. And so with that being said, we'll start now with Trustee Baldwin.
Thank you. First, I just want to give my deep appreciation to you, Mayor, for all your road trips to Santa Fe. It makes a difference when you show up, when the mayor shows up, and when each of us can participate to our best ability. There's nothing like it, and I think it shows in the results this time. So thank you for everyone who made the trip or trips, and this is very exciting. Two, speaking of exciting, the planning department releasing an RFP for new planning and permitting software. Yay. We've always talked about being sort of one flood or fire away from losing all our records. And so this is super exciting, and I think it's both a good thing for transparency and communication with the community and just efficiency of everyone's work. So super excited about that. The other thing, I have my first water authority meeting tomorrow evening, and I'm also sort of digging into other groups and activities. I've been lurking on the MRGCD meetings for some time, and I'm going to try to make that a practice of going in person. But to put us like an underscore and exclamation point, it's going to be a rough year for water. The spring melt came early. I don't know if anyone saw the sort of headwaters move through the ditches, but that was pretty cool. So we caught that on video. And so the ditches have had their first, charge of water to make delivery more efficient, but things are going to get tight. I think it's not really clear how many times ditch users are going to have access to water over the summer. And so I do really appreciate Director Bob being here. I think that MRGCD and the village have, a partnership, as well as the Water Authority have a partnership that has to work well together and continue to communicate frequently and openly as governing bodies so that residents and irrigators that depend on ditch water sort of understand what's coming and can manage the best of their abilities.
All right, thank you very much. We'll go now to Trustee Edward.
Thank you very much. And Mayor, thanks for going out and bringing home the bacon.
Now we're just gonna cook it up in the pan.
That's right. No, that's impressive. And I think the more we're in it, the better we're gonna do. An anecdotal story. So this last week I ran into Trustee Kiefer at Lavender Cosanita, which if you haven't been there, they have really fantastic food. And then right next door, I go over to the Busy Bee. And so I asked these guys, so how have things been since the Globitos? And they said it's been fantastic. And they look forward to something like that happening again. And it's still paying them dividends that we are beginning to shine a light on ourselves so that people can make a viable go of a business in an area that's been pretty sleepy. And I think the business that they're doing is not necessarily causing disruption to the rest of the community. And that's that nice balance. And I think that that's something to be celebrated. A couple of the things that I wanted to bring up is that being a physical presence within our community, going to another community meeting like the Mid-Rio Grande Conservancy District creates a sense of camaraderie. You can see this at a high school level, and you can see it in a college level, like in the athletic community. You know, when the football team goes out to support the volleyball team and vice versa in the soccer team, it creates a sense of great school spirit. And I like to think that our community is like a school, and that how we support ourselves creates a sense of spirit. And when you have that positive element of reaching out to somebody, it kind of builds on itself. I saw a thing the other day, depending upon how you talk about yourself, your body can hear your own voice. And if you're saying bad things about yourself, your body and your internal mechanisms are not going to allow you to be the best you can be. And I think that when we reach out and we're involved with these other community organizations and we find shared common ground and we're able to speak positively with each other. I went to that meeting. I told Colin, you know, you need to come to this meeting, tell us what's going on, and we need to forge ahead. I think that we're going to create a lot of really wonderful things moving forward, and I'd like to continue to do that. I'd like to see people from APS. I think we need to go to APS meetings, and we need to say, hey, you own more land in our community than anybody. You're the single largest employer, and you touch more lives in our community on a daily basis by all the kids that you educate. And we need to foster that spirit. And so I would like to encourage all of us to continue to do that, because at the end of the day, you know, this is the Albuquerque metropolitan area, but, you know, we're the village, and, you know, we're just like one of the kids in the family. So we need to go support each other. And in supporting each other, it doesn't mean that you're a Pollyanna. It doesn't mean that you glad hand somebody and you pat them on the back and you're like, oh, you're so wonderful, because sometimes you're not. I love it when I hear my kids holding each other accountable. It's not a pleasant experience, but it's a positive experience. And you don't get to see the fruits until weeks or days or months later. And so that's what I would like to talk about tonight, is what are we doing as a community, reaching out. You know, you went up to the legislature and lobbied the way you did, and look what we're getting, you know. And so I would like more of us to do that. And we don't have to be a trustee to do that. We can just be the people within our own community of doing that. So that's, I could say more about other things, but that's what I wanted to talk about tonight.
Good points, Trustee Edward. And you're absolutely right. It makes a big difference just to have the face-to-face conversation. It's so much time spent behind Zoom cameras. You don't always get the opportunity to have that interaction that really maybe recognizes that maybe, hey, well, let's work with these folks. I've had that opportunity with the Conservancy on several occasions, on several projects, where I invited them to come down and walk with us in the bosque, or walk with us in the open space, and say, look, if we just put a check valve here, or we did this here, and then of course they come back and say, since when did you get your engineering degree? And I said, well, we practice, you know, I've been known to practice being an attorney, for that matter. However, but you're right, it's that relationship that really sends the right message, so thank you for that. We'll now go to Trustee Kiefer.
Thank you, Mayor. So I've got a few things. One, as we're talking about Anderson property and solar, we may want to look either before or after on that roof program that the Municipal League has. Because if we can get a free roof, we should get a free roof that we learned about in Santa Fe. The other thing is, are we having a spring budget workshop, or are we just gonna get the budget proposed to us? What's the intent?
Well, I think we could have a conversation, excuse me,
I know, I'm sorry, Mayor.
That's right. We are in the process now of getting the departments to present their requests for us administratively. Let me say this, let's have put, as I say, a pin on that, and let me get back with all of you to talk about that. Okay. And see if you'd like to you know, participate after we do the budget review with the staff. Okay. To see what you all think might be some other opportunities that we might be missing.
Awesome, thank you. Next is, John, do you have an update on, again, my thorn that doesn't go away, the water rights at Palindrome?
Yes, so we were looking at all our water rights, but I know that request to look into the water rights at Palindrome was followed up on. And so what we've seen is that there were pre-1907 water rights there. I believe they were just under 2 acre feet that were not segregated in the transactions, so the village didn't get to keep those. So when that was silent, that meant that those water rights were taken by the Palindrome developers, but nothing happened with them. And a building and a parking lot are now over those lots that had pre-1907 saleable water rights. So they're considered gone. There's no really way to prove any kind of beneficial use there, is what I understand from the water right research that happened.
And let me put a point on that too. It appears that some of the property that the village purchased from a property owner that was in that area, that property owner sold the water rights before the village actually bought the property. And so those two water rights, some of those water rights were actually purchased by the Albuquerque Water Authority as part of their use for the whole region. And so to John's point is the use it or lose it, if you will, structure of how the state engineer looks at these water rights. A lot of the properties that were part of that development, there was, I think, a building and a big parking lot. And so the water rights that were associated with that were never used for irrigation purposes. And so as time went on, those water rights went away. Now, the Conservancy did come back and talk to us about potentially being able to use some surface water, but we can, believe it or not, for some of the remaining parcels that are still there.
For our parcels,
For 4, 5, and 6. And so we're looking at potentially doing some work there and getting with you all to just describe what that work might be. But yeah, but the property rights for 1, 2, and 3 are not there anymore.
Do we have a certain amount of time that we have to use 4, 5, and 6 before those become jeopardized?
You know, in our conversations with the Conservancy District and their water rights specialist, he basically said, look, I would urge you all to at least use some of that. And so if you'll notice right now, we've put this plastic thing all around that area.
The dust barrier?
The silt, is that what it's called? Silt fence that's required on the construction projects because it's our land, right? And that soil got disturbed during the project. One of John's thoughts was, well, if we can go in there and maybe put some kind of cover, some kind of a agricultural cover there if we can, it'll keep the dust down and it'll help us continue the use of the water rights. And then hopefully if we can use those or move those down the road, we might be able to do that. But
I was thinking even just planting trees on the back end. I mean,
and there's some things that we're gonna try and do there to help, if you will, secure the site a little better, for sure. Okay?
So it's my understanding that when it comes to the water rights, you can always assign those water rights on a temporary basis and change the point of diversion.
Right.
Without losing them. And so I guess one of my questions is, you know, what is the statute of limitations? How many years that you're not using the water rights do you lose them? I thought it was protracted. I thought it had to be like over 5 years or some ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a pretty long period of time. We'll have to maybe get with we have a water rights attorney that maybe we can come back and visit with you, trustee, and with all the trustees, and just maybe talk a little bit about that. Because there is a point of diversion, but if you think about the project itself and how long the village actually had the property as well, that they didn't use some of that during that time. And the fact that at least for parcels 1, 2, and 3, that there was no water rights available anyway, because they had been sold already.
I mean, You know, there was a lot of water used on that property for construction purposes.
Sure.
I mean, you could probably argue that some
Make
of
that
those water
argument.
rights were used for that.
Sure, sure. All right, anything else, Trustee Kiefer?
Couple more questions. Do we have anything, especially with the construction projects going on and our 60-mile-per-hour winds blowing dust ordinances?
Mayor Rael, Trustee Kiefer, that would all be regulated through what's called their SWIP, which is through the county. I did notice, gosh, when we had a windstorm a couple weeks ago, there were county representatives out at the site, and they do have to plan for how to keep dust on site and how to keep dust and dirt on site, especially during windy events, and that usually involves spraying it with water to keep the dust down. That's not within the purview of the village, that is within the purview of the county, but the planning, the planning and zoning department has gotten phone calls about that, and we have sent those folks over to the county to inquire, and I've seen follow-up from the county on site.
Great, great. What happens on weekends? Does the county respond on weekends?
Mayor Rael, Trustee Kiefer, to my understanding, they will. The SWIP is managed through their environmental department, and those folks don't work kind of typical 8 to 5 hours, so my understanding is yes.
Awesome, thank you. So last thing is, again, I had my March trustee, and it's the same tone, different people, but you know, the same lack of trust in village government, and that we're actually looking out for the welfare of the community. But one of the things that was brought up that I thought was really cool, that I haven't had time to put into an email yet, was the potential for an anonymous hotline for code enforcement reports. Just because they feel like the way a lot of the codes are written, right, pits neighbor against neighbor, but if there's an anonymous way to report, people would be more apt to come out rather than feeling like they're tattletailing.
Yeah, Trustee Kiefer, I hear that. The village has recently initiated a contract with Esri for mapping capabilities, and when they were demoing their product to us, they have a code enforcement type module, I'll say, that we could implement here at the village, that I hope to implement here at the village. That would be kind of a map-based, you put a pin somewhere, you want to report something, you can choose to put your contact info or not. That's something that I hope to bring online in the interim until we get through this planning RFP that would implement something more permanent. But I do think that the village now has capabilities to do anonymous reporting and maybe a more robust code enforcement reporting system under the recently contracted software. So yes, that's on my list, and I will keep in touch with you about how that progresses.
Awesome. Is that similar to what City of Albuquerque uses when you report weeds and?
Mayor Rael, Trustee Kiefer, not entirely. That's a separate platform. Their C-Click-Fix platform is a totally different contractor, so it would not operate the same, but it might look similar.
Okay, thank you so much.
There's a Spanish saying that loosely translated into English is when the neighbors get into a fight, that's when all the truths come out. As long as the neighbors are all getting along with each other, no one says anything. And I would just say, I get really concerned when we have anonymous tips, because inevitably it's neighbors not getting along with each other, and before you know it, I also recognize there is some also a sense of, look, I don't want to get my neighbor upset with me, but you know that pot farm he's got going in the backyard is become a nuisance. So anyway, but let's see what that modular comes together, and we work through it. Anyway, Trustee Rena.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a couple of things. I had also attended the MRGCD meeting along with Trustees Baldwin and Edward, and I totally agree with the comments that Trustee Edward was making. There were a couple of people at that meeting who I had met before. In fact, I met them when I was initially elected. Went up to Santa Fe and attended the Municipal League Day. And there's a commitment on their parts for us to try and talk with each other because we may, again, have some common problems. And, you know, so from Corrales, there was a gentleman there from South Valley who again, I had met before. But there's commitment there to try and find ways to address some of the regional issues that we have. And again, to, you know, reiterate what Trustee Baldwin had talked about, doesn't look like there's much water, you know, and they talked at the meeting, at that MRGCD meeting, about the distribution plan, which is not really set yet, but they indicated that the amount of water is probably not going to change from what they've had previously. So that's going to certainly impact what we have to do here in the village. As far as APS, I've had an opportunity to attend a couple of what they call the community council meetings at the schools. And I would just kind of encourage residents in the village to, you know, to reach out and try to meet with these community council folks. I've got names that if you need to, I'm more than happy to supply, but the local schools need help. Not only help in terms of any kind of donations that they can receive, but just help in terms of support for the programming that they do. And I know that over at Los Ranchos Elementary, they've got an ag program that they're starting. You know, and if we could in some way support that, that would be extremely helpful. The traffic issues around Taylor Middle School have been somewhat ameliorated. You know, they do have, the cars tend to get onto the campus a little quicker. I guess, but what I'm still concerned about, though, are just maybe the handful of students who are walking along Guadalupe Trail. And so they're walking between the car that is parked on the side of the road and the roadway. And you still have cars that are running both ways, north and south, while this is going on. And so I think we need to come up with a way to certainly increase the safety for those kids who are walking, and maybe try to encourage parents to actually use their turnout that they have on the campus, because there are a number of cars that just wait there for their kid to come out and don't move through the campus, and so that causes some backlog, and it causes some shall I say, some disagreements among the parents who are waiting. You know, but I'm continuing to talk with APS to see if we can find some solutions to those things. So that's it.
Well, I would say thank you, Trustee Rena. John, let's get Jeff, who is our school liaison, and get Keen to go out and look at that issue. I witnessed that as well, and I share the concern that the trustee just described. When you have young children walking around vehicles, you can't see them, or if you're just, and I know what's happening is some parents don't want to go into the campus so that way they can just leave. And so they have their kid come up to the car as opposed to going to get them, which, you know, obviously everyone has their own rationale for that, but we've got to figure out, one of the things that we might think about doing, John, is, you know, maybe putting in some flashing lights that are turned on by the school during some period of time on the road, that maybe we can set them up in a timer so that way when it's pick up and drop off, it sends a message to the drivers on the road that this is a 15 mile per hour, if you will, corridor basically between El Pueblo and Ranchitos, so that way we have a little bit of more of a safety precaution in that corridor.
Aaron, can I say something? Mm-hmm. So I have a daughter who goes to school there. And I see and experience that stuff every day. I think that Taylor's a really good school. I mean, my daughter was on a team that they were undefeated in the city.
Sweet.
Which is great. And the gym was full during the music events, and I think that sometimes the local schools get it kicked in the shins. But I will say that Taylor has a unique location. There's really only one entrance, one exit. It's compounded by the construction. And I think things can be done in terms of, kids don't ride the bus anymore. Parents get to be very, very anxious about, oh, I got to drive my kid there. I got to pick them up. And, back in the day, kids used to ride on buses, and it really reduced the traffic elements. I think that APS has maybe developed some bad reputations from their own district or other districts that kids just don't take the bus anymore. And if you sit there long enough, 250, 350 cars will rotate through that little area there. And you do park out on Guadalupe Trail. I've done both. I go in sometimes. Sometimes I park there. I tell my daughter, hey, if I'm not there immediately, you just start walking and I'll meet you on the way home, or I'll just see you at home. There's all these different means and mechanisms. I do think that more kids walking is a good thing for everybody's health. And I think we talk about speed. You get 30 or 40 or 50 kids walking home from school. Cars drive slower. And I don't think having that many cars on the road is going to prevent an accident. I think it increases the chance of an accident of so many types. So I don't know what to talk about with APS. I don't know what the solution is, Mayor and Trustee right now, but I live it, I see it. My daughter and I talk about it. We talk about proper protocols. They don't even teach traffic safety in APS anymore. It used to be a part of the curriculum, and I think that we should demand that of the school districts in APS, that if you're going to have these kids there, you got to have a curriculum, because they might teach their parents that they need to have better habits within their car if they know the rules. So I think you appreciate both of your paying attention to that and being aware of it.
All right, well, thank you very much. We have no other business, so we are going to adjournment. All those, do we have to vote for that, Miss Clerk? Okay, we are adjourned. It is now, what time is it there, Madam Clerk? It's 8:40. We are adjourned. Thank you so much, everyone. Yay.
This looks like a lot, but it's just a few things.
Thanks, Bill.
So whenever there was a permit and there was.
Oh, it's just generally their signage. They don't have any permits for any of their signs. So right now they're all illegal.
Okay.
They're gonna argue that some of them are grandfathered. I'll say,
That's
tell me they were legal at one
And
time.
then I read through the minutes again just to see if I could spot
But
something
they have
that was outstanding, and I didn't touch any of it.
sidewalk,
See what she says.
feather signs.
Oh, you'll send me the copy of the.
If you drive by there, it's just like an outrageous number of signage.
Yeah.
That is, it's just not compliant.
And then there was an amendment for
And one of the
do
trustees
you
is
have
interested in this,
last
so.
minutes where I can?
Yes, it'll be in this last minutes,
Oh,
the ones that we submitted now.
oh, okay.
Because that,
follow-up on
remember, that was the one I told you that we forgot.
And so we have like a notice of violation drafted that.
So look at the way I
exactly
inserted
what
it.
allows,
So
exactly what
they
they have,
the motion,
how it's non-compliant.
and then they
tells them
talked,
to come in for
and then
permits for
they
some
made
of
an
those signs.
amendment to that.
There's no way under the code they
One
can
and the landscaper, blah, blah, blah.